Alright, YouTube, this is Drew here with Politically Black, and today what we're going to be doing is we're going to be taking a look at Kamala Harris inciting the BLM violence that occurred in our cities for 7 months while denying her part of the problem. I'll pause periodically to rebuttal. I'm going to keep this one fairly short. I do longer rebuttals, I don't mean to. It's just who I am.
Hey everybody, we're back here with Senator Kamala Harris. You've joined protests in Washington, D.C. First of all, did you wear a mask?
I did, but I will tell you, the first protest I ever attended was in a stroller when my parents were marching in the 60s.
This is not a true story. It was stolen from a Martin Luther King story. She just tried to spin it to be about herself.
So it's kind of something I've done my entire life.
Yeah. I know that your mom was very politically active. What did you learn from her?
I learned that the greatest movements that we have seen in recent history in our country, but probably since the beginning, have been born out of protest, have been born out of understanding the power of the people to take to the streets and force their government to address what is wrong, the inequities, the inequalities, the unfairness, but also the conscience of a government is its people, to force the government to be true to the ideals that we say we hold dear. And almost every one of those marches has been about one fundamental ideal in our country, which is equal justice under law.
Spreading terrorism, attacking their own neighborhoods, and also killing their own people. But that's just really what happened. Was a black Trump supporter was killed during BLM riots because he's a black Trump supporter. Just saying, black people killing black people. We're the only people who can still lynch our own people, and that's messed up.
And fighting to make sure we have a government and a country that at least every, few steps gets closer to achieving that ideal. We've not yet reached it. We've never actually reached it. But these protests, I think, are the catalyst to getting there.
What did you see in D.C.? What was it like to march in those protests?
It was, I'll tell you, one of the things, Stephen, that I saw that gives me such hope, people who seemingly have nothing in common, who know they have everything in common. It's a beautiful sight. People of every race, age, gender.
Except for Republicans. Republicans strictly and starkly are not welcome to be a part of the conversation at all. You guys need to be sent to rehabilitation programs according to AOC, me included. Let's get rehabilitated and reprogrammed.
Together and seeing the commonality. And it was then the commonality of spirit. And it was something that was so very powerful. And I think we all have to recognize it for what it is. We have arrived at a point in our country that we should recognize this is not just a moment, it is a movement. It is a movement that is fueled by the diversity, the beautiful diversity of who we are coming together as a unified body, demanding, in this case, change and justice for everyone.
As a senator, as a politician, someone who has to respond to the constituents, what do these protests mean to the ability to affect change legislatively? Because the reason I ask is because I woke up this morning, I looked down at we do like a news breakdown at night, news breakdown in the morning. I looked at everything, I went, where's the report on the protests? Yeah. Are they gone? Are we not just talking about them anymore? Because it seems to me it has to be sustained in order to maintain the pressure and to maintain this for people of not just talking about them anymore, because it seems to me it has to be sustained in order to maintain the pressure and to maintain that.
Sorry, had to rewind. They're talking about how BLM's not going anywhere and how we need to just deal with it. And if we don't, we're the new bigots.
Commonality of purpose for people of all races in the United States to bring this kind of justice is being called for. How important is it for these protests to continue?
It's critically important. And I'm going to tell you something. I made a very conscious decision to become a prosecutor. I grew up in a community that was not always on.
Listen to this next part. It's really important. I've heard this video once before and then once prior, so it's like third time hearing it. This is super important and identifies who she is as a politician.
The best end of law enforcement in terms of how the laws were applied. There's not a black man I know, be he a relative or a friend, who has not been the subject of some form of racial profiling or excessive force. So when I made a decision to become a prosecutor, it was a conscious decision, which was to go inside the system and have some leverage there.
This is a liberal tactic. They go inside of systems that they don't like or don't belong in, and then they change those systems. It's a core tenet principle of liberalism.
To effectuate change. I say that to say this. The only way we're going to truly achieve change is when there are people in the system who are willing or pushing to do it, and when there are those folks who are outside of the system demanding it. I am very...
Shooting a baby in the head from the back of a car because a black father didn't agree with you is a great way to demand change. I just want to throw that out there, that is probably the worst thing you could do and then say, oh, we're peaceful. First of all, I know no black person who is in BLM. I just don't. I know black people who support the BLM kids, but I do not know any black person who is actually in BLM. The black people I've seen in those videos are true Uncle Sambos. They've sold out their race and they killed the guy who was freeing everyone. Unfortunately, Uncle Sambo really runs the nation right now, and Kamala Harris is an Uncle Sambo. She put away her own people as a prosecutor, and a lot of her own prosecutions are now getting overturned by the judges that prosecuted the cases because they were wrongly prosecuted. When these people are going to appeals, they're winning most of their appeals because she didn't actually use evidence to put these people away. It was all bias. Clear
that some of the success that we've been able to achieve around criminal justice reform would not have happened in recent years were it not for Black Lives Matter. And the intensity and the brilliance of that movement that forced at least that there would be some counterforce to the status quo, which is so reluctant for change, if not hostile to change. That's what these movements do. That where these systems are so invested and ingrained in what they call tradition, but is status quo, often which can be wrong-headed, these movements provide a counterforce to get us to where we need to be.
So even what some might call weak tea proposals by the Republicans right now wouldn't be happening if there weren't these protests in the streets.
I'm sure of it. And it's tragic because...
Yes, she is right. Without the violence, the Republican Party would never have caved. She is entirely correct. Without firebomb, I don't want to sound bad, but I am going to sound bad here. I want to thank the Republican Party for selling short their ideals, values, and beliefs to try to protect my people, and I wish my people would do the same thing to protect themselves. I appreciate you trying to take the steps. I really do. Unfortunately, because of Kamala Harris, AOC, Pelosi's of the world, you guys won't have any chance. But again, thank you, Republicans, for trying to get the violence to stop by caving in. I appreciate it, but now is not the time. Now we need to be stronger than ever.
The reality is that these protests have been happening in maybe smaller form for generations, but let's just look at where we are right now and acknowledge, to your point, yeah, maybe smaller form.
Sorry, getting some water for my coffee. I'll be right back. All right, coffee is brewing. Let's go.
For generations, but let's just look at where we are right now and acknowledge, to your point, yeah, had these protests had people by the hundreds of thousands not been out there marching, many who might be relatives of those very people who have been obstructionists until now, we probably wouldn't be where we are. But again, back to where we are, what the Republicans are proposing is by many accounts, and certainly by my...
So this is a weird admission. She knows who's protesting. She knows that it's the politicians' families. That is weird because it's almost as if the politicians' families are immune to then consequences for their actions, like taking over Chaz and Chop is suddenly explained if it was a bunch of kids who were related to politicians. That's really unfortunate that their kids get to act like little shits and that yours get shot because, well, you disagreed with their kid. Yeah, that was a black father who didn't make national news because Kamala Harris is a piece of shit. Just, oh my fucking God, I hate this woman. I would never wish her harm, but I hate her. I absolutely hate her.
Absolutely insufficient to meet this moment. And we need to go with the Justice and Policing bill.
And I want to make clear that I know that there are protests still happening in major cities across the United States. I'm just not seeing the reporting on it that I had for the first few weeks.
That's right. But they're not going to stop. They're not going to.
Because they weren't important, because they didn't change anything, because they didn't mean anything, and they didn't better anyone's lives. You guys, you literal idiot liberal ideologues shot a child because a father didn't disagree with you and you wanted to flex a gun that you should never have had. We need to take guns from the politicians, kids, from the politicians, and we need to remove our National Guard from them and show them what it's like to be defenseless. I'm sorry. We're defenseless. Actually, we're more defenseless now because of our National Guard being moved. This was a strategic maneuver to make sure that they could endanger the people further. Next, they're going to make you beg for their protection. No, we've been asking, and I will never stop asking. I will kneel before no man who is not God. If you are not the Son of God, I will not take a knee before you. Now, if you're the Son of God, I'll know. I mean, you'll prove it. Like, you will just be able to prove it. I mean, you would be the Son of God. There wouldn't be too much out of your power. I would do my best to recognize, too. But you know what? I've never met a man who is that perfect or a woman who is that perfect that they warranted my kneeling. See, because in order for me to kneel before you, I have to think you're absolutely perfect in every single way. Which, I don't believe that of Harris. Now, this is the part where we're going to get into incitement, and this is the proof of incitement that you've all been waiting for.
Stop, and they're not. This is a movement. I'm telling you, they're not going to stop. And everyone beware, because they're not going to stop. They're not going to stop.
Everyone beware. That's a threat. Just listing that.
For Election Day in November, and they're not going to stop after Election Day. And that should be, everyone should take note of that on both levels. That this isn't, they're not going to let up, and they should not. And
they shouldn't stop. That's her saying that BLM should keep firebombing buildings and killing children. That's all she's saying. There's no debating it. Sorry, that's how it works now in 2021. This is the rhetoric that leftists created. I've imitated it for years, trying to show you guys how dangerous it was. You never cared. You always flamed my comments, and now here we are, and I'm not joking. She incited violence, and she needs to be removed. Remove the VP, remove the president, because he didn't say anything about this. He didn't say that Kamala Harris's remarks were wrong. Joe Biden is a mouthpiece. Joe Biden needs to be removed, along with the chain of succession, who all allowed her to say this.
Should not.
Senator, we have to take a quick break, but when we come back, we'll have more with Senator Harris and ask if she has any interest in...
So what you witnessed from Senator Harris... They're not going to stop. They're never going to stop. They're going to keep going, and they shouldn't stop. She said they shouldn't stop. She is stupid because as a prosecutor, she knows what that means. She knows she just committed sedition, treason, and said that it was okay that the cities were firebombed, that a white kid was killed for bicycling in his neighborhood where he lived. She condoned that. Know who you're voting for next time, people. You don't get a lot of chances to fix these kinds of errors. Now it's going to be a process to fix this. Now it's going to be in the second year you're all going to call for impeachment of Joe when his disapproval rating. When his disapproval rating reaches 50%, which it's really close right now. You can't have an approval rating of 13% without a riot. I wonder what's going to happen. I really have to wonder what's going to happen, because right now he's at 49%, and that's one of the lowest for president in their first 100 days. It's only going to get lower from here is what that means. He came in with a very low bar, and he's failing that. I am so sorry that you guys did this to yourselves. But he incited violence by allowing Kamala Harris to be his vice president candidate. He should have picked someone else. He should have pitched to the DNC that she needed to be removed from his party. And if they wouldn't have helped, he should have taken it up with Republicans. That is absolutely unacceptable, and this is no longer rhetorical. This is no longer just purely rhetoric. This is truth now. You've made this reality. We have to abide by your new rules. Your new rules are she committed incitement and sedition against AOC. She threatened AOC's life with the BLM protesters by saying that everyone needs to notice that they're never going to stop. This has been Drew here with Politically Black, aka Gamer Guy Vladimir. Have a good day, a good week, a good year. I have provided you the proof and evidence of Kamala Harris inciting violence, lying about her record and who she is. What you do with it is on you now.